Mabuhay! Welcome to a bonus mini episode of Lagim, a Filipino true crime podcast. My name is Christine, and this is the story of the ever fabulous and stylish Elvira Manahan. Before I start, and as always, make sure to not miss any updates about Lagim by following our social media accounts. We are on Instagram at Lagim Podcast, on Twitter at Lagim Pod, and on TikTok at Lagim Podcast. Lagim also has a Facebook page and a Facebook discussion group, so look for Lagim Podcast on Facebook. If you like to stream Lagim on YouTube, make sure to look for Lagim Podcast on YouTube as well. And now to our story. Content warning. This story contains details that can be upsetting and confronting, so please take care of yourself whilst listening. When you think of the word socialite or even the term fashion icon, you do not necessarily think of anyone from the Philippines right away. Granted, the fashion industry is very heavily influenced by creators, designers, celebrities, and influencers from the West, but Asia, and indeed the Philippines, have produced some fashion and socialite forces that were and are to be reckoned with. One, Imelda Marcos, may perhaps come to mind as someone who showed the world what an excessive love for fashionable shoes may look like. And then we have the modern day Filipino socialites and fashion icons such as Felicia Atienza, Heart Evangelista, Nina Herrera Huang, Lizzie Zubel, or Tina Maristela Ocampo. But one cannot hold a candle to the impeccable Elvira Manahan. Before she was Elvira Manahan, she was Elvira Ledesma of Silay City of Negros Occidental. Elvira was born into a modest family on the 27th of June 1927 to Simeon Montinola Ledesma and Conchita Ledesma. Elvira was the oldest, and soon enough she was sent off to Manila to live with her paternal grandmother Gertrudes Montinola Ledesma and aunts Pasita and Soledad Ledesma. Elvira was a charming, charismatic young lady who attracted some well-to-do teenage boys from prominent families in the nation's capital. So imagine their dismay when Elvira decided to marry at the young age of 16. She married Armando Eduque just before the end of the Second World War. Sadly, the marriage would not last long. Armando died shortly after the wedding. According to a Tatler article about Elvira, and I quote, "In 1945, the occupying Japanese poured gasoline on the Eduque residence and set it on fire. The Eduques fled to an air raid shelter in the nearby Madrigal compound. Later, they returned home and made a dugout in their yard where they hid for a couple of days. Their pet German Shepherd kept barking, however, and Eduque was afraid that it would call the attention of Japanese soldiers to them. He decided to take the dog away. Elvira recalled that a lot of shooting followed. The Americans arrived not long after, but Eduque never returned. A few days later, she found him dead on the street. She tried to remove his wedding ring, but the flesh came off his finger." End of quote. The loss hit Elvira hard. She was a pregnant 17-year-old widow overnight, essentially. That signature Elvira laugh that drew people to her so easily and quickly was suddenly gone. The Tatler article I mentioned earlier described how Elvira would have nightmares about what happened to her late husband, so much so that she had to seek psychiatric help. But love was just around the corner, even in these moments of grief and war. Elvira would eventually fall in love with her gynecologist, Dr. Constantino Manahan, or simply Tito to those close to him. Tito was considered one of the most eligible bachelors in Manila back in the day, so it did not surprise people that when he and Elvira crossed paths, sparks flew. The whirlwind romance between the two led to a luxury wedding within a year of their meeting. The ceremony, the wedding reception, were the talk of the town, And by town, I mean Manila high society. Elvira and Tito would have three children together, one of which, Johnny, would later be known in Filipino showbiz as the manager for ABS-CBN Star Magic, a sort of talent agency connected to the ABS-CBN TV network, and as senior vice president for ABS-CBN Corporation. In the years to come, Elvira bloomed even more as a woman. She would become a fixture of Manila's high society and would also become their latest it girl, pushing the fashion envelope whenever she could, setting trends, proving that she had outlandish and yet still exquisite style. Designers would clamor to create pieces for her, and she enjoyed the devotion in return. Tito was a devoted husband to Elvira. In the Tatler article I used to research this episode, Tito was said to be happy whenever Elvira would get dressed up for functions, but Tito could not really spend much time with her and the family. He worked long hours at the hospital. A family friend, Bea Zubel, would tell the Tatler that if Tito did not work the way that he worked, he would not be able to afford what Elvira wanted, so he happily worked hard for his family. As a socialite and wife of a prominent doctor, society expected her to fly under the radar, to not be outspoken or mixed up with showbiz types, but Elvira had other plans. Elvira had always wanted to be in front of the camera, and she was at a point in her life where she was slowly not giving a damn anymore about what high society thought of her. She grew tired of the routines and longed for more purpose, more fun, more fulfillment. And so, in her later years, she began starring in movies and hosting shows. Her signature laugh and charm made her a TV and cinema favorite almost overnight. She was known to be unpredictable, but she was so good at playing off what others may have deemed as a weakness or a flaw in her character. This was an example cited in the Tatler article I have quoted and mentioned already. By the way, do read the article because it is very well written and it provides an interesting peek into who Elvira was. As always, the link to that article is in Lagim's blog. Anyway, back to that example from the Tatler. In a live episode of the talk show called Two for the Road, Elvira mistakenly introduced the ambassador of Argentina as being the ambassador from Chile. When she was made aware of her faux pas, she blurted out, "Well, why is Chile not in Argentina?" The ambassador found this hilarious, and I would think the audience did too. Their response to her showed that people were naturally drawn to her charm and quick wit. Others could not have played off such a mistake as well as she had on live television with such important guests. But that was Elvira's signature as a TV personality. One other thing that had fascinated people about Elvira was her candor. In a time when talking about plastic or cosmetic surgery was most definitely not accepted, Elvira had no qualms admitting that she had done something to enhance her already stunning beauty. Now, in the 70s, Elvira found herself living in London, which to me seems like the perfect place for a Renaissance lady such as Elvira. What brought her to London was a London financier called Ali Aziz, who slid into her life at a point when her marriage with Tito was maybe feeling a little bit stagnant. The implication from the Tatler magazine I used in my research is that Elvira essentially had an affair with Aziz. It also seemed like Tito was okay with this whilst he was biding his time until Elvira came back. He also dated younger women, but it did not look like any of those flings were serious. But back in London, Elvira did not really feel like she could be her Renaissance self after all. In the 5 years she lived there in 1972 till 77, she felt restrained and restricted. She did not feel like she could be her boisterous self anymore. After a meeting with Mother Teresa in 1977, Elvira made the final decision to return to Manila. Elvira happily resumed her position in Manila's high society and later on her old hosting position at Two for the Road 2 years after in 1979. The radiant Elvira thrived and flourished even in her 50s, but this radiance would soon be dimmed. Friends of Elvira's shared with Tatler that she was a sucker for sob stories. I can almost imagine Elvira wanting to maybe vicariously live through other people's lives to know a lifestyle other than hers, other than her showbiz filled high society life. One particular sob story she was drawn to was that of a 27-year-old man called Jaime Balatbat. Elvira, who at this point was nearing 60, suspected him to be suffering from a mental health issue, but she nevertheless gave him her time of the day. He would call her and she would listen and would patiently talk to him. These phone conversations could go on for hours. At some point, rumors emerged saying that the two were lovers, but friends did not think this was the case. Nevertheless, this unlabeled and odd relationship of sorts would not last. On the 14th of October 1986, an agitated Balatbat demanded to see Elvira at 8 in the morning. Reports would later speculate that he must have been agitated due to losing a lot of money at the casino the night before. At the Manahans, a house helper let him in, as he was known in the home. He was no stranger to the house staff. He was, after all, a constant companion of the realtor, Ed Pugeda, who sold the Manahan house. The Manahans were due to move from Forbes Park and into the Urdaneta apartments along Ayala Avenue soon. Balatbat was therefore due to receive a commission from the selling of the Manahans' home. This was what he was after. Whilst inside the Manahan home, Balatbat was served coffee and biscuits and was told that Elvira would not be up until 11 in the morning. He was offered the chance to wait for a couple of hours until then. The house helper who informed him about this then resumed her cleaning. But Balatbat could not and would not wait. In some reports, it was said that he proceeded to shoot the helper Margarita, who just informed him about Elvira getting up at 11 a.m. In other reports, it was said that he stabbed her with a blunt instrument. Balatbat then proceeded to shoot the family's cook and another house helper who was attempting to help Margarita. In some reports, it was said that Balatbat then passed by the home gym, picked up a 15-pound dumbbell, and hit another house helper with it, but in other articles, it was reported that Balatbat picked up the dumbbell, then proceeded upstairs to find Elvira. If some reports are to be believed, it seemed that as soon as Balatbat made it upstairs, he barged into Elvira's bedroom and woke her up, demanding a check from her. They then went across the hall into another room where Elvira started writing Balatbat a check. A gunshot then sinisterly rang through the Manahan home. If the same reports are to be believed, it seems like Balatbat shot Elvira in the head and then hit the crown of her head with a 15-pound dumbbell. Statements from the house helpers seem to indicate that Balatbat fled the Manahan home in a hurry, and they found Elvira slumped over her office table, bleeding and still breathing. One of the injured house helpers, who miraculously survived her gunshot wound, managed to crawl to the home's gate. She hailed another house helper from another family's home, who then called the village's security for help. All the injured victims, including Elvira, were rushed to the Makati Medical Center. Elvira was rushed into surgery, but the doctors could not save her. She died that very evening. After her death, Tito Manahan would never go back to the home in Forbes Park again. Gone was Elvira's boisterous laugh, her bigger than life personality. Her family would later say that she was not at all the persona she projected on TV. At home, she preferred to walk around, wrapped around in malongs or sarongs, without makeup and with her hair down. She was not at all the airhead people saw on Two for the Road, according to one blog post. That was a caricature. In reality, Elvira was intelligent, well read, and rather cerebral. So, what happened to Jaime Balatbat? He was quickly apprehended and charged. By 1988, he was still awaiting trial for Elvira's murder. In September 1988, a prison guard said that he was about to leave the prison at the end of his shift when Jaime Balatbat approached him, grabbed his hand, and tried to seize the gun from his waist. After a scuffle between them, the prison guard ended up shooting Jaime Balatbat. Balatbat died right then and there. Some people may see this as justice and some may not, because in the end, he did not really stand trial for what he did to Elvira Manahan. But one thing is for sure, Elvira will always have her legacy. Elvira Manahan would leave a lasting impact on a lot of people, so much so that some daughters born during that era would be named after her. She remains a fashion inspiration and also an inspiration for Filipinas in showbiz. With such a brutal end to a full and brilliant life, I can only hope that Elvira will not be forgotten so quickly, but also that she will be remembered for the good things she left this world with. And with this, I want to end this bonus mini episode on the story of Elvira Manahan. And now to my podcast recommendation of the week. My podcast recommendation of the week is a non true crime podcast called the Slack Live Podcast, hosted by my three favorite slackers, Earl, Thomas, and Ron. Here is their quite different type of trailer.
All right. I'm Earl,
I'm Ron.
I'm Thomas,
and
welcome
welcome
to
to
the
Slack
Slack
Live
Live
Podcast. So, this is it. We're actually starting a podcast. I don't know why we decided, but hopefully it goes well.
Oh my god, this guy is
Anyways,
talking so much.
Ron, are you talking or am I talking? Yeah, exactly. So anyways, Ron, what are we gonna be talking about in this Slack Live podcast?
Well, since this is the Slack Life podcast, we'll be talking about everyday things and experiences that hopefully you guys can relate to as lazy as we are. There's gonna be some cringy stories, some embarrassing stories, some juicy stories, and some very weird stories as well, like Earl's.
Excuse me, what my excuse me, Ron.
Nah, dude. Okay. That was kind of cringe, but like, listen. Okay. On a real, bro. Like, I'm here to help
Only
you
you.
guys out. And
Some counseling.
listen. I'm here. Dude, okay, so basically, we're gonna talk about life and what does life have exactly.
What-
So we're gonna be talking about life here.
Oh, Father
It's
Thomas.
the slack life with the slack as well, with the laziness. Okay, I don't know where I was going with that. Why are you laughing? Huh? Why are you laughing? You think this is a joke? Huh? You think I'm joking around? Guys, there's gonna be a lot of like this. There's gonna be a lot of this happening. Dude, these guys always put me on a spot where I have to explain myself.
Thomas, there's a trailer.
So okay,
It's not a rant.
listen, guys. If you're getting on board, yeah, just put in the comments down below. Team Thomas, hashtag Team Thomas, hashtag Save Thomas.
Okay, counselor, you can stop talking now.
Exactly. So, anyways, finally Thomas shut his mouth. But yeah, we're gonna be posting every Thursday. So, if you wanna listen, you can listen. If you don't wanna listen, then don't listen, I guess. Spoiler alert: we're gonna be very cringe. So, I guess you're gonna miss out on this cringiness.
All right, so Earl, do we have any plugins?
Thomas is supposed to be you actually.
Bro, I was asking, do you have to plug in anything? Dude, you see, guys, I'm already done with these two. So legit.
I didn't even say anything.
Anyways, if you guys haven't already, we would like to plug in our Instagram account.
Why'd you emphasize plug in?
What? What? I'm plugging the. See, the Enemy
Flagging.
Filipinos coming out. Flagging. I'm flagging. Oh my god. Okay. If you guys haven't already, could you please follow us? Follow us on follow us on our Instagram page at Slacklight Podcast.
Okay, I guess that's it. Yeah, we don't want to waste your time, so yeah. You guys want to go Warzone?
I'm already online actually. I'm playing. So
Okay
yalla.
then. All right.
Thomas, I'm sending in
I'll
invite.
invite you guys.
Okay,
Let's run
join
it.
me.
No, I'll invite you.
Okay, bye bye.
Okay, whatever. Bye bye. See you.
Again, thank you very much for tuning in. If you want to support Lagim even more, you can become a patron on patreon.com. You will get early access to episodes and bonus episodes as well. So make sure that you head to our Instagram bio to check out our Patreon page. Also, make sure to give Lagim a 5-star rating and maybe a nice little comment on Apple Podcasts. That will help this little podcast greatly. Thank you again, and make sure to tune back in next week for our usual longer regular episodes. Thank you and maraming salamat.